Well, good morning. It's good to be with you on this Tuesday morning as we continue together in our time of Holy Week. This is Tuesday of Holy Week. So, over the next few days, we're going to take a little time each day to talk about what specifically happened on that day of Holy Week. So, yesterday, Monday, we talked about the cleansing of the temple. Today, we're going to talk about Tuesday's different. Tuesday is a day of teaching. Jesus spent a lot of time today teaching. Some of his greatest teaching was on today. Tomorrow, Wednesday, is when the ball really begins to start rolling towards the cross. Things are going to pick up the next few days. So, Tuesday is the day where Jesus does most of the major teaching that he does. There's a lot of things that he says on Tuesday that are important, but I want to focus on the seven woes. We'll talk about what this is, but first, just a little history of who the key players are in this season. There's two groups you've heard about. You probably may be familiar with the Sadducees and the Pharisees. The Sadducees and the Pharisees were the religious leaders of the people, and they made up together their religious council called the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin was made up of those two groups. Sadducees were the priestly class. They were the ones tied to the temple. They were the ones tied to the sacrificial system. Pharisees were the teachers of the law. They were in the synagogues. They were kind of out from Jerusalem. So Sadducees, temple, sacrifices, Jerusalem. Pharisees, teachers of the law, synagogues, out from town. Now, together, like I said, they formed the Sanhedrin, but there was a lot of division amongst these two groups as well. They often fussed with each other. But these two groups made up the religious power structure of the people. And on the temple, on the temple, there's a wall around the temple, and there on top of one of the walls was where they gathered, called the Sanhedrin. And below the Sanhedrin would have been these steps called the teaching steps, and that's where teachers would have come to teach and preach, and in many ways be judged by the religious leaders. So the teaching steps are there to this day. If you ever are so lucky to go to the Holy Land, you'll get to stand on the teaching steps, and when you stand on the teaching steps, that's a place that Jesus stood at. So I wanted to kind of paint this picture for you. This is where Jesus does some of his major teaching, particularly the seven woes, is below the Sanhedrin on the teaching steps, looking up to the religious leaders. So I want you to understand where he is when he says and teaches these things here. So Pharisees, Sadducees looking down on him as he is on the teaching steps, speaking to them, but also to the crowds who have followed them. So this is that's the background, the context for what we're going to read in Matthew 23. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, the scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. Therefore, do whatever they teach you and follow it. But do not do as they do, for they do not practice what they teach. They tie up heavy burdens hard to bear and lay them on the shoulders of others, but they themselves are unwilling to lift a finger to move them. They do their deeds to be seen by others, for they make their phylacteries broad and their fringes long. They love to have the best seat of honor at banquets, the best seats in the synagogues, and to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces. But you are not to be called rabbi, for you have one teacher, and you're all students. And call no one father, and call no one your father on earth, for you have one Father, the one in heaven. Nor are you to be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Messiah. The greatest among you will be the servant. All who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you lock people out of the kingdom of heaven. For you do not go in yourselves. When others are going in, you stop them. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cross the sea and make a single convert, and you make the new convert twice as much a child of hell as yourself. Woe to you, blind guides, who say, whoever swears by the sanctuary is bound by nothing, but who swears by the gold of the sanctuary is bound by the oath. And then it continues. It continues. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. You tithe mint and dill, but have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith. It's these you ought to have practiced. You swat out a gnat, but strain out a gnat, but swallow a camel. Woe to you! You clean the outside of the cup, but inside are full of greed. You're like whitewashed tombs. On the outside look beautiful, but inside are full of bones of the dead and all kinds of filth. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, for you build tombs of the prophets and decorate the graves. If we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would not have taken part in the shedding of the bloods. Thus you testify against yourself. And then he has these seven woes where he condemns them. And then it ends where him saying this, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stone those who are sent to it. How I've desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. So your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. So we see Jesus here speaking against, condemning the hypocrisy of the religious leaders, speaking against, and I love of the woes, the one that always resonates with me the most is when it says you're like whitewashed tombs, which on the outside look beautiful, but inside are full of the bones of the dead and all kinds of filth. So he says this. Remember, Jesus always uses the scenery around him. And so he's speaking up to the religious leaders. But behind him, to his back, is the Mount of Olives, which has a huge cemetery on it. So as he's calling the Pharisees whitewashed tombs, he's saying it while literally to his back are whitewashed tombs. These are tombs where people are buried in, and they would have washed the tombstones white so they would be visible to all, so no one would step on them and become unclean by touching something that was dead. Verse 23, you neglect the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith. These you ought to have practiced. Jesus is hammering them because the religious leaders, had mastered the optics of religion, but not the heart of it. They had mastered looking the part. They had mastered what were appearances, but had neglected what the law was really about. Make you make a single convert. You cross the sea to make a single convert. You make the convert twice as much a child of hell as yourself. They they were focusing upon the wrong things. And I think that is, it's ironic that we're going to have Easter Sunday, isn't it? And it's important to have days like this. But as Christians, every Sunday is Easter. Every Sunday is a day set aside to proclaim the resurrection. Ah, goodness, every day is a day we get to experience the resurrection, isn't it? Friends, it's so easy. So easy for us to be like the religious leaders and focus on the optics of our religion instead of the actual intent and heart of our religion. It's so easy for us to focus on the to-do list of our religion and miss the intent or the purpose of our religion. So easy for us to focus on how we appear and how we look. So easy for us to focus on what others think about us. So easy for us to focus on all these things and miss the point of it all, which is obedience to Christ, which is loving God and loving neighbor, which is justice and mercy and faith. What Jesus says the heart of the law is that we should practice. It's so easy. It's so easy to focus on the optics of our religion and miss the point and the purpose of our religion. So as we move ever so slowly, towards Good Friday, as we move ever so slowly towards Easter, as we move ever so slowly towards the days that are to come, let's focus on what are we really doing? Why are we doing it this way? What are we focusing on? Why are we living in this way? Why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we excited about Easter? As a pastor, why am I excited? Am I excited about Easter because it's gonna be a big crowd, a big Sunday, and we have a lot to talk about, and all the energy of the day? Or am I excited about Easter because it's a day to worship the Lord? It's a day to proclaim the resurrection. Why are you excited about Easter? Why are you excited about these things this week? Are we focusing on the optics of it or the heart of it? The religious leaders focused on what others saw, and they missed why they should do it. So, friends, let's not make the same mistake. So there's a lot of opportunity this week to focus on why. Focus on why. Why do we do it? So today, I pray that we can all reflect on why we're doing what we do, not what others see and others think. But why? We follow Jesus. So let's follow him faithfully and let's live faithfully in this grace. Thanks for being with us. We'll pick up tomorrow on Holy Wednesday. Thanks.